and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Policy. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of this meeting is notified the superintendent's office of the desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our meeting of December 2nd.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular school committee for December 2nd, 2025.
Second.
All right. Any corrections on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. 4-0. All right, next up, we'll hear from Chelmsford High School representatives.
Thank you. So Trade Week started at the Chelmsford High School yesterday with the Regional Council of Carpenters coming. Today, the National Aviation Academy came today and students learned about aviation mechanics. Tomorrow, the Army National Guard is visiting to teach us about programs, scholarships, and how much the Army has to offer in their many different trades that you can take up there. And on Thursday, Franklin Cumming Tech is coming to allow students to explore many different trades. On Tuesday in the Learning Commons, the CHS a cappella groups, the Thursdays and the Crescendos, are hosting the Listening Lunch, a time where students and teachers from all around the school can spend their lunchtime listening to our a cappella groups.
And from December 6th to 8th, the National Honor Society of CHS held a festive of tree fundraisers. A number of trees, wreaths, stockings, and festive gifts baskets were raffled off for a worthy cause. The CPS Holiday Fund for Families in Need received all the proceeds. And on Thursday, December 11th at 7 p.m., another amazing Chelmsford High School winter concert took place at the Performing Arts Center. And class of 2027 representatives had held their annual Holiday Lights event at the front of the high school on Sunday. People who came by were able to receive a map of the homes that were participating in the event and also able to receive plenty of cookies and hot chocolate with great amount of holiday joy.
Great. Most important thing, how many more days till winter break?
School days, we got 5.
I knew one of you would know.
Those are the important days.
That's what it was. All right, any other good news we'd like to share?
Yeah, and on that vein, just a reminder that schools will not be in session from December 24th and will return on the 5th of January. So that is important. And then just to piggyback on the concerts, it is concert season for the Chelmsford Public Schools. Actually, tonight as we speak, we have a concert happening for Parker and McCarthy. And on Thursday will be another Parker McCarthy orchestra. It's the orchestra tonight, I believe, is the chorus. Thursday is the orchestra. So if you're looking for something to do, I always say, please go and see the different kids performing. They're amazing. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., is going to be our third public forum for our building project for the Parker Middle School. So please join us at the Elks at 7 p.m. That's it for good news.
All right, anybody else have anything they want to share? Okay, then we'll move on. I don't believe we have anybody for public comment, so we're going to move on to new business. And our first order of business is to hear from our science coordinator.
John Morris is here tonight. He's going to go over all things science. Science of science.
Science of science.
I got to tell you, I've been learning science from you for now like 10 years. So you've been here for this long.
Hopefully you learned a lot.
I have, clearly,
Good things.
clearly.
I used to come with gifts, not tonight, I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll get back to it.
So it's great to see everybody and be back here. I know the last time I was here was June of this year, but I do have some pretty good updates of what's happening within the science department, grades K to 12. So tonight, a few things that I'll focus on. Something that has been new for us this year, me specifically, is our science learning walkthroughs. Also an update with the new performance tasks, which are aligned with DESE. Some information about some grants that we recently acquired, and then open to any questions you have about where we are with science and where we are going. So the first thing we have is learning walkthroughs, which we also had today in grade 5 over at Parker. What's great about this is, so this is a small team. If we go over to Parker, it's myself, it's Dr. Hirsch, representation from special education, Mr. Blagg, Mr. Souza. We all go in and we're looking at all the science classes in grades 5 and in grade 6. And our aim of what we're doing here is we're looking for inclusive practices that we're seeing within the classroom. We know that our staff do a phenomenal job of how they are inclusive of our students in their learning, but for us to come together and go into these rooms, and then when we come out, how we kind of in a way debrief to say, this is what I saw from an inclusive standpoint, but to hear perspective from Dr. Hirsch, or to hear from Mr. Blagg from the principal end, and then from a special education lens of what we're seeing, it's a really good opportunity for us to really have an honest discussion about what we're seeing, what does it mean, how does this help kids, and what we can take away from it to share with other staff as well. So these teams that have come together, another thing that we have is the actual practice I linked within the presentation. I'll show you those practices on the next slide. But moving forward, so today was our second time over at PACA. There'll be at least one more time that I will be over there. But again, we want to look at what are the real roots of these practices. We want to look at UDL, right? We actually want to look at what are some positive behavioral intervention supports that we can offer. And also, we're looking at social emotional learning. So to go into the rooms, when you see all of this happening at once, the learning is going on. The students are engaged. The rooms today, just to see grade 5, they're all on mixtures and solutions. They just started that unit. And to see the kids doing hands-on tasks and to see them actually arguing with each other of, no, we should do this step first, or no, I think this is magnetic because, or this is iron because the magnet's attracting it. So they're just hearing the accountable talk, the argumentative talk, the sense making, it's just awesome to see. But to see how they're treating each other and being respectful of each other and they're going through that process, that's an awesome part of it as well. So when I talk about these inclusive practices, this is straight from DESE, and I wanted to be able to at least show you. So when we do go in, right, this is just a little list of, what we could see with the educator, what they would be doing, right? What are some things that the student would be doing? And then in general, what's actually happening within the classroom. What's great about this is I don't have to look at this list to say, I wonder what I'm going to see in the class. The joy of me being able to go into so many classes throughout the year, not just what we're doing with the walkthroughs, is that I know I'm going to see these things when I walk in a room. It's just a matter of what does it look like from an elementary perspective, a middle school perspective, or a high school perspective. But it's been a great experience, and I look forward to continuing to do this at Parker and McCarthy. Next thing we have, the new performance test. I talked a little bit about this back in June of how there's a new MCAS test that is coming for SY27 for grade 5 science and grade 8 science. I should say science, technology, engineering. And one of the nice things that the state has released are performance tasks. And these are something that has been released for districts to actually try out, to give feedback, to refine, and to hone to make them more improved. I'm fortunate enough to be part of a science leader network, so we do get together periodically throughout the year. We do look at these tasks, and we actually say, all right, those are the districts who have done it, how did it work for you? What was working, what did not work? Some of these, when they come out a couple of years ago, they say, this is going to take 3 days, or this is going to take 1 day. And now here we are a few years later, and they're saying, okay, so we're way off on this. It's actually 3 days instead of 1, or it's like 1 day instead of 3. But they're a phenomenal resource, and they are locally developed. They've been released online, and they periodically release more and more on the DESE site. In terms of what we're going to do with these is we're going to have to find a way of how can we put these within our larger units in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. At the same time, how do we take this transition to these new types of assessments in grade 5 and 8? What does that look like at the elementary level? How do we actually prepare students to come up for what this is looking like? But they're actually really interesting tasks. I want to give a few examples. So grade 5, one that's been released. This is actually something that is also unique, is that DESE has encouraged districts to localize them if possible. Right? So I like to say the term Chelmsfordize, right? So this first one in grade 5, it actually talks about a milfoil infestation. This is something that is right out of the newspaper that happened in North Chelmsford this past summer over at Freeman Lake. I always say both names. And that was something where money had to come in. A grant was written to reduce that milfoil because it chokes out the oxygen supply within the lake. It's a similar type of study that grade 5 students can come in. So I can actually take this study with my team of 5th grade teachers. We can transfer this and say, what does this look like at the real local level here in Chelmsford? Put those places in, places that kids relate to, kids that they know, and they can say, oh, this is why the beach was closed for a period of time this summer. So they're learning about it. There's also that local connection. Also in terms of conserving rainwater is a great task that we're going to be able to look at. And then in grade 6, this one's a little different. It's actually similar to a unit project we do in grade 6 now with waves of how we have to reduce the effects of sound and sound mitigation. We do it with a small like shoebox example, but one of the things that we've talked about is how can we make this an actual better assessment? So what's nice is that with this new one that was released, I can work with 6th grade to say, what can we do to have this happen in our classroom? What does it look like? But also giving our PD time to really sit and discuss, what is this going to look like? How are we going to implement this? How are we going to score this? How are we going to be common with the scoring? And then get feedback to actually help our curriculum going forward. So it's a great resource. And I look forward to not only working with the staff with this, but even to see the kids work with this. And then last big piece of information, there's some recent grant news that relates to science. And this is more so at the upper middle school and the high school level. We're fortunate enough this year for Innovation Pathways, we did receive another implementation grant. So implementation grant are funds that help you sustain your pathway program. So we do have a life science pathway, which has a focus on biotechnology or environmental technology. These are funds that are really geared towards instructional supplies. Biotechnology supplies are not cheap. We see these costs go up and up each year. But this is a grant that is huge for us and able to support keeping these classes going and have these hands-on activities for our kids. So for this school year, we received $50,000 from the state. This $50,000 actually gets split. It's not just for life science, but it's for all 4 of our pathways. It also is looked at for tuition programs for our students who have dual enrollment, who are in the advanced part of our pathways. We've had this grant, I think this is year 3, we've had implementation for life science pathway. But it's been a huge, huge, huge support of how we can actually run the program. And then the other great news, or actually before I even get to that, you're probably saying like, what are some of these things we buy? The first one I always have to talk about because everybody looks at this picture and they say puppies. What is going on here? It's actually a lab that our high school students do, and you guys could probably chime in. I don't know if you did this one, maybe not. They call it the Oodles of Poodles lab. Now you remember, okay. So they run gel electrophoresis. They have to determine genetics of a dog and who the parent and the offspring are. So it's pretty interesting. I will not do this with real dogs. We're not going to do breeding happening here at the school. But other things that we have to do with this money, we actually look at soil testing. We look at water quality testing. And our kids are pretty active with this. They get outside. They're doing a lot of testing on the school grounds. We have the science pond, so we see them get in there with the waders and everything in the fall and the spring. But when they actually get these samples and we have to do some data analysis, it takes supplies, right? And this grant helps pay for these supplies. And the other great news that we have is sometimes we have the supplies, but a lot of the things in science, you also have to have the equipment. And equipment costs for scientific materials are extremely high. And we were lucky enough that we received a skills capital grant. This is similar to what we received a few years back. We're looking forward to implementing this again. This is going to be geared towards life science and our manufacturing engineering pathways. So this is equipment that is used within those classes that support those pathway programs. Also, we look at equipment that relates to industry skills and industry applications. We try to reach out to industry partners to say, hey, what do you expect for somebody coming into the workforce right now, graduates down the road? What do you want them exposed to? What do you want them learning? So that way, when they do see something, it's not totally new for the first time. Some of the larger purchases with this, it does come back to our biotechnology and some of our chemistry classrooms, looking at more, I think, the analytic balance, more equipment for gel electrophoresis. From the manufacturing engineering side, there are new laser engravers and laser cutters and components for our robotics program. With both of these grants, I cannot have done any of this without the support from, obviously in the Career Center when we had Ms. Cunningham, and now we have Mr. Silver in there, but also working with Dr. Sweeney and Bill Silver to say, all right, how can we support both these programs? They've been a huge, huge, huge resource for this, and I appreciate the support they've been giving me. And of course, Joanna, who gets to deal with me doing the payment and budgeting and everything with it, so it's been great. But we're looking forward to receiving these funds, getting these products in here, hopefully before the end of the calendar year. So when we come back from break, we can actually hit the ground running with these. And that is all I have in terms of our major updates. So I'm open to any and all questions that you may have.
Any questions?
On the Pathways program, are you seeing that the students who enter the Pathways program, the freshmen
Mm-hmm.
that have just come in this year? What are the numbers? How are we looking?
So we've seen a small, steady increase throughout the pathways. I can tell you this past year was the first year we actually had to have a lottery for our business pathway because it was over subscribed.
For business?
For business finance, correct. Science usually teeters right towards the edge of 20. We cap each pathway at 20 per year, just because of the funding that has to go with it in terms of tuition and supplies. It's beyond what our budget is. That's where the implementation money comes in. We do see some students that do not fully matriculate through, and that's for a variety of reasons, right? One of those could be they just lost interest in that subject, right? Some students come in, they say, I am going to do business and finance, and then they might end up taking some other class in another department and say, that's what I want to do now. Like whatever they want to do could change.
No.
Some of it is scheduling, right? So our kids are really great kids. They want to do a lot of things. They want to be, invested in everything they're doing. But the joke I like to say is there's no H block, right? So there's only so much time in the day, and sometimes they have to make a decision, and they'll say, you know what, I'd rather take this other class I really want to take versus finishing out the pathway. Another limitation that can come in is having that availability for students to do the internship. Right, some students might be taking multiple AP classes, so they can't juggle the rotating schedule to come in to take the AP class and take the AP test, versus an employer who would say, all right, so Monday you're gonna be here from 7 to 9, then Tuesday you'll be here from 9 to 11, and then Wednesday it's too much to go through. We do have the capstone component of it, which is great. But even finding more industry partners is also a huge challenge, not just for us, but everyone who's doing the pathway program in other districts. Having somebody that can take on high school kids, right? To come into their building, work with them, they can teach them. It's just a lot to take on. So a little bit of a struggle that we have with that aspect too.
So now we have the experience we're at a point where some of our Pathways folks have graduated and gone on to college.
Yep.
Right. What are we getting as feedback from them on benefits of this?
Yeah, great question. So last year was our first year where our full business and IT students went and graduated from the program. So we've not heard directly back from them yet this year.
Okay.
So this is part of our data acquisition of, we have the data of, did they actually go into a program that was similar to what they studied? We just don't have that data that says, well, how did that prepare you now that you've done a semester, right? The real point of the Pathways program is for kids to be ready to enter the workforce within those fields or go into that college aspect. And sometimes, really making sure that kids understand this is the real purpose of this. It's not something that's going to be, this isn't like a pre-med type program, right? This is something where we want you to get exposed to this. We want you to learn some facets of it so you can just do the internship, see what it's like. Is this enjoyable? Is it not? And the funny side note to this is we actually had a student last year was very vested in engineering, was starting the internship, and they said, this is not for me. And actually had a little bit of a switch and looked at project management. So we actually changed his whole internship to look at project management. He was able to, he spoke with Dr. Lang last year too about school design, school construction projects. He visited several other districts to look at their construction. So sometimes the pathway isn't just supporting what you want to do. Sometimes it actually tells you, maybe this is what I like, but it can help me find another passion too. So,
Well, it's better to explore that in high school.
yeah, it's free.
Yeah, I was going to add just congratulations on those grants. That's great. As you know, I'm really supportive of the Innovation Pathways program, in large part because I think it's actually really fantastic information when somebody picks a path that they don't actually want to pursue, right? Like at the end of the day, that's information they're getting much earlier than they would have gotten if they waited until they picked a school and really intended to major in that or something like that. So I think high school is the time that we want to see them trying and sometimes making the wrong choice at first and, pivoting. I did have a kind of a separate question going back to the performance tasks.
Yep.
Piece that you were talking about. I'm just curious in general. So I know there's obviously preparation for official required state tests for MCAS and things like that. But, and then there's these performance tasks, which you've shared some of with us. I'm curious how, in general, performance assessment is integrated into the science curriculum. Is this something that students have as every year they have, 1 to 2 expected performance assessments that is part of their science experience? Is it something that certain courses have and some don't? Is this, part of a series of assessments where sometimes they take tests and other times they do performance tasks, or there's choice built in? I'm just curious how it's integrated.
Great question. So the big push for us is, especially at the middle school level, is to integrate more of these performance tasks. Personally, with grade 5 and 6, I view these more of their culminating task that should replace a quote-unquote final assessment. Our current FOSS curriculum does have some more of the traditional type of assessment, whether it be like a fill-in, a multiple choice, short answer, constructed reasoning. But with the performance task, it actually has them go through, you can look at it through the lens of the science practices of they're actually quote-unquote doing an investigation, working together, coming up with a solution. And the new MCAS illustrates that. So it's not something that, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have a full slate of these for every grade, but it does take time for us to really sit, how do they actually factor into the curriculum? And then the timing piece comes into it too, because it's one thing you have to look at your curriculum to make sure that it prepares them for this type of assessment, right? But I see, some of the big changes, what does this look like going to the high school level, right? Because at the high school level, we do have, so we have a greater focus with lab design, lab execution, depending on the class, a different type of reporting they have to do. But from a performance task perspective in this format, it doesn't look like this. So we have to have the discussion of how do we want to have this continue up through grade 12.
Right.
We're also fortunate enough that we have quite a few classes at the high school that are also dual enrollment. So we get this feedback from the college, right? And that hasn't been relayed to us from Middlesex of what they're looking for. They're looking more of like the actual content, the full assessment of it. But those types of tasks isn't something we really looked at. How does that link at the high school going up to past grade 12?
It's going to be an interesting journey over the next couple of years with the way that the assessment system at the state level is
Yep.
shifting, period. So it's going to have definitely an impact on all the rest of this. I'm curious, when these are they graded by individual teachers? Is there a calibration process? Is it
Yep. So
collectively
yep,
graded?
the idea is going to be, we want to look at, we have to come together to have the rubrics that we agree that we can actually assess this properly. I think looking at student work is an awesome activity to do. And then this will be scored with the teachers for the respect. It isn't like we're going to have one teacher do like somebody else's. It's their own students that
So
they'll be
each-
scoring. Yep, each
But there'll
teacher
be
will have
some
their own.
sort of calibration of the rubric that's
Yep.
being used and things.
Yep, and I think the calibration, not just with these tasks, but anything that we measure, I think is important because, the kids change, their learning changes, and sometimes it gives us an idea of like, if we modify the curriculum going, before they take that assessment, we want to be able to take that data and say, okay, we have to look at how we're measuring them. Do we have to change the measuring stick? So,
Cool. Thank you.
I was going to ask on this, I see the Skills Capital Grant was awarded to CHS, but does that mean that, so the equipment has to go to CHS, but does that mean that now some of the older equipment from CHS can kind of trickle down to the middle school?
So the things that we'd be obtaining with this grant aren't going to move things out to another school. These are going to augment what we currently have from a class perspective.
I don't know, just balances and things like that, where if you're getting more balances,
No, so these are, like, the ones that we're getting are, there's fewer of them.
Yep.
They're just much more sophisticated. So it isn't like we can say, all right, now that we have 12 of these, we can move the 8 older ones down.
Okay. Right, so everything will stay at that.
Everything's going to stay pretty much, yep.
Great work.
All right.
Thank you.
I also found out there was a science pond. Who knew? More that there was waiters, but thank you. Great work.
Yes.
I'd like you to stop by and wear the waders and go in.
Well, it's a little frozen right now, but I can give you the tour.
Listen, if I was invited in, I would come in and do something with the waiters, with the kids. I would do that.
All right, you're on the record. I'm
I'm
going to
on
hold
the
you to
record.
that.
It's on public record. I would do that in a heartbeat.
All right, any other questions?
Can I ask one other?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the science field, in preparing these students to continue on and explore more, one of the things I'm kind of seeing is in the labs, there's more and more the computational scientists, the understanding of using data, that already exists, the sharing of all of that information. So they're bringing together more of the engineering with the science, more and more. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. I think we see kids who are not just taking just science courses. We actually see more and more kids taking engineering courses with the science courses as well.
Together.
And it's a good thing because they actually see more of that application side, not just that content side, which is really important for them to understand when they go into the next level, where it's not just, all right, these are the things you learned. You have to put it into practical practice.
Right.
Right.
And so when these guys presented at the beginning, they were talking about all the things that are coming in that are, the carpenters, the skills, that are hands-on, actual doing, which we need more in society because we don't have enough of these folks. And in the science field, it's more the thinking and all of that, but also the doing, the actual doing that robotics can't do. The human being can in the lab versus the robot. Is that something that you find our students have to learn more and more? The actual performance of the experiments and so on? Does
So-
that make them more amenable to doing better when they go on in the field?
So I think the more real life application that they do within the classroom is part of that preparation. So a few years back, one of the big focuses we had at the high school level was to look at the current lab activities that we do and say, what does this look like in current industry practice? Is this actual industry practice, right? Yes, we know that they're high school students, right? But again, we try to look at different things and say, how can we tweak this to actually make this more relevant, that this is something that is happening outside in the world today? I think our biotech work has done that, and our life science teachers have been phenomenal support with that. But even in terms of our chemistry teachers have modified quite a few experiments to say, no, this is what actually happens, right, in the field. In terms of what you talked about, the other trade aspects, not as much the focus with that, but that's obviously something that maybe down the road we could look at of how we could have more of an integration there.
It's interesting. Getting more and more interesting, isn't it,
Yeah,
John?
it is very interesting.
But yeah.
Don't know how it's going to end.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you very much.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good holiday.
See you in the spring.
Or the January thaw.
Yeah, January thaw, all right.
When you go over to Wade.
Yeah, when I
All
go
right,
waiting.
we are going to transition to our, no, I'll help him with it. We're going to transition to our second item on the agenda tonight. We have Left Field Hamdi from Left Field. He's our owner's project manager representative on the Parker School Building Project. And then we have three individuals from AI3 Architects, Troy, Julie, and Tori, who are here tonight. And I know the committee's been very involved with the work on the Parker Middle School project. We have another community visioning session tomorrow. This is actually a very busy week for us. We have, on Thursday night, we have the building committee meeting, so this is a week of Parker School Building Project. But the folks from AI3 and Left Field are here tonight to just give the school committee a little update about where we're at, and then a couple of school committee-specific actions that are going to be taking place over the next month or so. So with that, I will turn it over to AI3, and I'll just advance if that's all right for you,
Sure.
the slides, because we didn't sync up our computers.
Oh, sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll start a little bit with the schedule overview. Thanks to actions of the school department already, there have been prior reports as well as that submission to the MSBA with the statement of interest. As a result, the Chelmsford has an opportunity to receive grant funding through the Massachusetts School Building Authority for a building project. So what is that project? As you can see in this MSBA flow chart, it's actually a very prescribed process that they outline. We are currently in the feasibility study phase, so that's what's outlined in green. And just as Dr. Lang alluded to, we are focusing tonight on sharing the status of that feasibility study, as well as just pointing out some action items directly related to the school committee's part in the feasibility study. The following sort of 5 phases will ultimately fulfill a project, hopefully, and then that will ultimately be completed in 2030, assuming that it's funded and there is a proposed project to move forward with. focusing on that feasibility study specifically, there's really 3 phases within that study. So we are in step 1, outlined by this yellow box here, called the PDP phase. We'll then move into the PSR phase and then schematic design phase. So those 3 steps encompass this first phase, and then a proposed project can then be put in front of the town to vote to appropriate funds. If that goes in favor of the project, that will then move into phase 2, where it will start to really be developed into a physical building via all the construction documentation.
Could you just share what PDP stands for?
Yes, absolutely. So the PDP is the preliminary design program. The components here are a lot of the chapters that will ultimately be a part of that big report. And the highlighted portion here in red is, again, those action items that we're looking for the school committee to complete over the next month. And it's really just one action item, the first being the review of something that we call the educational program document. And we'll be able to share more about what's involved in that document in tonight's presentation. The district leadership has already been able to draft this program document. That will be shared with the committee later this week. And ultimately, that is outlining sort of the purpose of the project, goals, and the spatial needs of what is happening in the district right now, as well as a proposed project. So that educational program document is a little bit of the educational aspirations for a project of any of the 3 enrollment options for consideration. We will return in January, so I think January 6th is a school committee meeting. At that point in time, we'll be looking for the school committee to have reviewed this educational program document and have at least an endorsement or sort of a approval of the draft version of that educational program document. Once that's complete, then the full school building committee will be able to submit that entire PDP package to the MSBA to complete this first step of the process. And what's involved in that PDP, it's over 1,500 pages of reports, documentation. We have been visiting your schools. We've assessed the existing conditions of the middle school buildings and the sites. We've also been able to start to put together some conceptual design options. So actually starting to think about what a building project could look like for each of the enrollment options. And all of that has been informed by this educational program document, as well as its sort of corollary document, which is a series of spreadsheets that just outline space requirements, size of spaces, and those 2 things coming together has helped inform the conceptual options that will fill out this PDP report.
So just to clarify, the report will include the variety of options that you're laying out here. It will not be recommending a single option.
That's correct. Yes, so skipping ahead a little bit, we are not here tonight to request that the school committee select any kind of option. It's really just to introduce you to the process, outline your role in the program, educational program review, and then be able to continue to reduce the number of options as the steps go on. So we currently have 14 options that we're studying, and those range in their level of complexity. The code upgrade options really only address code upgrades, base repairs. So there is an option for each of the middle schools that will be part of the PDP. We also have a series of addition renovation options to the existing Parker School, as well as new construction options on the Parker site, the Graniteville site, and the McCarthy Field site for all 3 enrollment options. So a lot of options that we're looking at. We're actually sharing more detail and some graphics associated with each of these options in tomorrow night's community forum. So we won't share that tonight, but it'll be a little bit of intrigue, if that entices you to attend.
And when do the options start to get whittled down?
Yes, so as a result of that SBC meeting to approve submission of this PDP to the MSBA, we'll be looking to the building committee next month to be able to start to make some selections. It's likely that at least probably 6 or so will continue into the next phase. But that at least allows the committee as well as the design team to be able to spend more time on working through refining each of those options.
At the end, if I could, at the end of the next phase, the preferred schematic report phase, that's when you whittle down and decide on a single option. That single option then goes into schematic design through the entire process and further developed as the option, preferred option to move forward. So that it gives the group, the community, building committee, the runway for the next 4 to 6 months to identify a single option. Yeah.
And so the timeline for that phase that you're talking about, is that the step 2 or the step 3?
That is correct.
Step 2,
Yeah.
okay.
And it's preferred schematic report. And these are all of these acronyms and all of these specific number of options were prescribed because of the grade reconfiguration options, the number of sites, and the MSBA's standard identified code repairs within each project. So the collective, at least at a minimum, will be looking at 14 options. That will, as Julie is mentioning, that will start to restrict down to 4, 6 options, and then ultimately a single option. Now, as we move through the next phase, some of these options might peel off into 2 or 3 or 4 different option or variations of that single option. So there's a lot that will occur over the next several months, and a lot of investigation on individual options as we move forward.
And at the town meeting, when the town votes, they will only vote one single option with the scope and budget together.
That's right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about educational visioning and programming. We have summarized the visioning process a lot in the past community forums that we've shared, but that's important because it's informed a lot of the documentation that has now been written out in that educational program. So through the visioning process, which included interactive meetings with students and educators and community members, they were able to provide direct input on current instructional practices, grade configuration through their own maybe lived experiences or of what they've observed as an educator, and then also the facility needs. So commenting on, the way the existing Parker Middle School is maybe inhibiting some of the educational delivery or aspirations that the educators are looking to provide. So all of that content has been summarized we have a full visioning report, and then that information has, of course, also informed the educational program document that you'll be reviewing. A little background on what that educational program document is. It is something that the MSBA requires as part of this phase, and it documents both the existing conditions of the educational program, so the existing curriculum at Parker Middle School, for example, as well as outlining the proposed educational activities. And it's worth noting that that is written for all 3 enrollment options. So those proposed educational aspirations in terms of a 5-6 enrollment, a 4-6 enrollment, and a 5-8 enrollment. And then once that has been documented, it allows the OPM, the design team, to develop, evaluate, select, design, and continue to work through those conceptual options to, just as we talked about, be able to filter down to that preferred option.
At the end of the next phase, when we get to a place where a single option is identified, a single grade reconfiguration option is identified, that's when the final educational program will be inserted in the preferred schematic report, and that's when it's finalized. This first step is the draft. This is the working document that identifies all 3 grade reconfiguration options, and then ultimately, next phase, it will be a single grade reconfiguration and a single document.
Just, I'm sorry to keep asking questions in the middle here, but is there I didn't see it in your slides, is there anywhere that disambiguates who makes decisions at which phase as these get winnowed down for as like where the site is versus what the grade configuration is versus whether we're going for a full new construction versus code, whatever? Which of those decisions are made by the committee that has been designated for the school project? Which things have to be the school committee making that decision? Which things are just eliminated by the people doing the work because they're not feasible? Like, I just didn't know if there's anywhere that disambiguates that.
Yes, so the grade reconfiguration decision is essentially this group. The
Okay.
school committee makes that decision as part of the, in conjunction with the leadership group. The building committee will identify most of the other parameters of the project, whether
The
that's
physical site.
this- Yep, the site, ultimately the project as defined by the educational program, the space summary, and the materials, the aesthetic, all of those components will be the building committee's oversight.
But what if the decision of one impacts the other? So for example, if a particular site is chosen and that site, or I guess that makes it a little tricky, but like if the code decision is chosen, for example, that precludes us from changing the grade configuration, is that correct?
What?
And
It
which
would,
of those
correct.
decisions gets made first, I guess is my question.
The first decision is grade reconfiguration.
Okay,
That's ultimately what the committee will, as part of the educational program and finalization of that document within the next phase, that will be part of the process, the first stage. We have to identify that first in order to get to a place where we can proceed to the next decision-making.
okay, so that doesn't need to wait until the decision is made about code versus?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. We have to, by MSBA requirements, we have to bring along the code required option until the schematic design, until the end of PSR, and that single option is selected.
got it, thank you.
Sure.
Good questions. And we also just wanted to commend the district leadership on having assembled this very comprehensive document. It's over 86 pages at this point. And we also just wanted to share some of the highlights within that. And it's a little challenging to be able to speak to the highlights without the contrast of the existing Parker building inhibiting a lot of achieving these ed program aspects. So it brings to the surface how just providing a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, things like that are critical. Sometimes the existing facility constrains or makes that more difficult to achieve. Integrating STEM or STEAM programs really to support a lot of that science curriculum that was just talked about. Those are aspirations within the educational program. Ensuring that students feel safe and they're excited to come to school and they have flexible learning environments to support shared collaboration, and ultimately resolving overcrowding across the district. We recognize that is an ongoing issue. So all of those things are included as part of the educational program. They're outlined as proposed, as well as a description of maybe why that's not successful in the current facility. And so you'll notice that all of those are involved in more detail in the educational program. Visioning sessions, we have held 4 visioning sessions since September. As I mentioned, these have included students, teachers, parents, community partners, and they've been very interactive, and we've gained a lot of input by talking to these user groups. And we just love sharing the photos because they show just a lot of activity and engagement by all of the attendees. What we heard during educational visioning, these goals are a little different from the educational program in that they really focus on goals for the entire district and a broader look at a project. So for example, having a project that can be a community resource. We have here honor community, culture, and core values. So something that's really specific to Chelmsford. Additionally, empowering every learner through collaboration and adaptability. So even how does that trickle through the district? You know, how do you create an environment that is supportive of the elementary school kids? Maybe it's a resource for them as well, and resolves a lot of those overcrowding issues within the district.
One of the things I would just say is the educational visioning sessions were part of the process, but it was a really interactive and an awesome series of exercises with students, with faculty, staff, with some community members, with board members, with the leadership group. It was a really exciting component of the process. A lot of feedback, a lot of interactive activities. We gained a lot of insight related to the future of education here in Chelmsford, and was able to, and if you look at the report, the 80-page report on the educational visioning, you'll see some of those activities, and you'll see photos representing the interactions, and it really was an exciting part of this process. And so that is baked into the educational program and then filters its way into the educational space summary. It was really exciting. I think it's important to just to relay that because not everybody saw the excitement or the interaction, but it was really a fascinating part of the process.
Yeah, it's definitely, and we, work with other districts, and we would say the consistent participation was worth noting.
Yeah, for sure.
A few slides, again, through educational visioning, a slide for each of the enrollment options that summarizes the considerations through the lens of developmental fit, advantages, and challenges. And common themes across all 3 of these enrollment options are that, looking at the challenges, educators' licensure for modifying the grade reconfiguration came up often. But really the focus and consistent theme with the advantages was that having an enrollment that exceeds 2 grades allows for students to be in the same place for more years. So having more continuity in their middle school education was something that came up a lot, specifically for the 4 to 6 enrollment and the 5 to 8 enrollment. So that was a consistent theme. And then it just allows for students to build relationships over a longer period of time and make less transitions across district schools. So that's something that you'll see in all of these, or in the 4 to 6 and 5 to 8 educational considerations. I'd say those would be kind of the key takeaways for these 2. As well as the 4 to 6, alleviating that overcrowding issue at the elementary school level without the need for an additional enabling project like the 5 to 8 option would. Then actually we took a deeper dive into analyzing that 4 to 6 enrollment in terms of what is the actual impact of removing grade 4 from all 4 of the elementary schools. So the following 4 slides, we have an analysis for each of the elementary schools that looks at the physical size of each of the schools and uses 3 different methods to ascertain the level of overcrowding in that school. So the first chart we have here that identifies overcrowding for grades K to 4, the current enrollment at the Byam Elementary School. The first method looks at the MSBA's space guidelines. So the MSBA has a space summary template. Tori will talk more about the space summaries later in the presentation. But ultimately, you can plug in a enrollment number into their spreadsheet, and it'll calculate what the size of the school should be. Obviously, there's a lot of variables with that, but it gives a good sense for an easy analysis. So when you plug in the existing enrollment at Byam, it shows that the physical size of the building is inadequate to support the 508 students that are enrolled at Byam this year. Additionally, we looked at the square footage per student. Typically, we like to see 180 square feet per student as a metric for the size of the building. From that method, Byam is also considered overcrowded for 508 students. And then lastly, just looking at the number of actual classrooms in the school and trying to keep that enrollment per classroom within DESE's recommended range of 17 to 21 students. That is not possible at Byam with the 20 classrooms that they have. The enrollment would exceed 21 students per classroom. So ultimately, this is no surprise to the school committee. You all know that Byam was considered overcrowded in terms of its enrollment. So when we look at removing grade 4 from Byam using this year's enrollment, that reduces the total population by about 104 students. The MSBA space guidelines, when we look at method 1, it still shows that the physical building size would be too small to support grades K through 3 in that building. However, if we look at method 3, the number of classrooms is sufficient to support as little as 21 students per classroom. So just removing grade 4 from Byam does resolve overcrowding in terms of method 3, those students per classroom capacity.
Does this factor in the modular classrooms?
It does not. And that's specifically because the modulars aren't considered a permanent solution, permanent construction. So if you were also to remove grade 4, that would at least allow for the option of eliminating the modular classrooms as well. And we did this analysis for the center school, Harrington, and South Row, and actually found the same results across all 4 elementary schools, that just being able to remove that 4th grade satisfied method 3, the students per classroom capacity. And so, as I mentioned, we're not looking for the school committee or even the building committee to determine an enrollment option at this time, but we just wanted to mention that the findings were showing that the grade 4 to 6 option does resolve the overcrowding issue at the elementary school level at this present juncture, without requiring any kind of enabling project, such as an additional elementary school. And those findings, as well as all of our other research and information, will additionally be included in that full PDP submission next month. And then, as I mentioned, educational space summary, I'm going to turn it over to Tori, who will speak to these slides.
Yes, so Julie kind of took us through the educational program, and that's a little bit more of the general what and how those spaces come together. The space summary is, like Julie said, a spreadsheet where we input some information, and that calculates total numbers of classrooms, different spaces that you need for public use, like the cafeteria, media center, things like that. And we have started developing those for all three of the different enrollment options, working with the educational leadership. And combining these two things together is what's really going to help us to create those design concepts. So the MSBA does provide us with a template, which is our starting point, and then working with the educational leadership, we're able to kind of amend those, change the numbers around to make it work for your educational delivery here in Chelmsford. So you can see the beginnings of these design concepts with these diagrams here. So the one on the left shows what could be an academic neighborhood. So this supports your team teaching methods, also creates some student collaboration spaces, breakout spaces, things like that here, and creates sort of a small school atmosphere, even though your school is pretty large. By grouping several teams together in this way, having them have some shared spaces, they have this kind of community sense within a smaller group of students, and there would be several of these neighborhoods per grade level as well, with this kind of layout here. We're also starting to look at how this affects more of those public spaces that I was just talking about. So for example, we've heard a lot about the music spaces, how they're very important. You have a very robust program, much more robust than the MSBA sort of provides for, and also making sure that those spaces are not directly adjacent to your core academic programs, so that during MCAS testing everything, these spaces are sort of separated. So looking at how those spaces instead can interact with other more public spaces and create some interdisciplinary connections between dining, the possible stage in a cafetorium situation, the arts, music, sort of wing with your telemedia studio and your more traditional media center as well. Some more type of public spaces we're looking at are also the wellness spaces. So that would be your gymnasium, some health classrooms, OT-PT spaces that would be needed, and some locker rooms as well. So there are many spaces that are not included in the MSBA space summary that you guys still need here in the district. So for example, they don't include a health classroom. There's no space allotted for student collaboration or teacher collaboration, or your local access TV studio, extra fitness spaces, or many of the music classrooms that you guys need for your robust music program, as we discussed. However, this is pretty typical. The MSBA kind of keeps things pretty efficient, I would say, with their space summary here. And so on average, we see typically middle schools, and these are a bunch of middle schools designed and constructed in the last 10 years in the sort of range of your enrollment overall for all three of your different options. So we see about 10 to 15% over and above what that space summary calculates for the MSBA. So having these additional spaces is not unusual. Every district that we work with has additional spaces that they require in their schools in order to support their educational delivery. And here you can see sort of our early phases of the space summary. We've gone through several rounds of refinement with the educational leadership, and we'll continue to refine those space summaries as well. They're certainly not complete at this point, but you can see all of these are under that 15% overage. That's kind of that average. I want to be clear here too. These are all in a similar percentage over, but obviously the grades 5 to 6 school is significantly smaller. It's under 170,000 square feet versus the 5 through 8, which is significantly larger at almost 341,000 square feet. So just keep that in mind. But both of those schools are around 12% over the MSBA number, whereas the 4 through 6 is around 7%, so even a little bit closer to that MSBA number as well here. So still pretty average in the extra spaces that you guys would need here in Chelmsford.
We did include in the draft presentation all of the space summaries for these enrollment options for reference. So, you know, if you enjoy looking at a spreadsheet, they at least show that the MSBA's standard rooms are in yellow highlight. And then we've had numerous meetings with the district leadership group and educators to get their input on what are the other spaces that you would need to fulfill that educational delivery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and those are all broken down kind of by category. So you have your core academic spaces, special education spaces, media center, all of those different types of things. So it's all grouped together in that way.
So then in summary, As I mentioned, we are here tonight just to be able to introduce everyone to the educational program. And the next time we are together in January, we would be looking for the committee to have reviewed that educational program and feel confident in endorsing the draft at this phase for submission to the MSBA.
Right, questions? Yeah.
As we move forward, at what point will we have a sense of the impact of costs? Because, I can make any decision, but what's my budget? So I think it would be, at what point?
Sure, and actually very soon.
Okay.
So, yes, so last week we, in addition to assembling all of those options, we did send them out to the cost estimator that we work with. So we will receive that information in January, in time to at least be able to inform the building committee of, the preliminary costs of all those options. As you're probably well aware, at this stage, they're so conceptual that there is a large margin of contingency with those, but it would definitely give a order of magnitude for each of the options and their costs associated with it. As Troy mentioned, when we return in sort of step 2 of this feasibility study phase, we will also have that will give you the opportunity to then approve the final version of the educational program, at which time we will have all of that cost information. So when we see you in early January, we likely won't have it yet, but when we return for step 2, we'll have a better sense of all of the costs.
So I can just see the question coming up, it's 4 years to go, or almost 5, whatever. And we don't know what the economy is going to do and how much more expensive things are going to get. The costs are going to decrease, right? As we move forward, what happens with that? Let's say that, we say, okay, to this project, and then we find out that it really is going to be millions more than what we want it to be. What happens with the MSBA and with us?
Sure. So at the end of October of next year, we will have completed this feasibility study phase. At that point in time, the committee and the district will have committed to their preferred option, and that will be the option that goes to the town to appropriate funds. Prior to it going to the town, we will have established a total project budget. So that total project budget number will consider a lot of the unknowns and will estimate it out to escalation of construction time. So we won't approach the town with that number unless it's been extremely vetted, which it will be at that point. That being said, it does happen where, given the market, the economy, the construction market, there are unknowns. And so by the time it goes out to bid to the general contractors, or if we use a construction manager, there is always the possibility that it could be bid higher than what the budget allowed. At that point, there are a couple options. It might be that we just need to return to the town to request additional funds to be appropriated for that, or maybe we're reducing scope of the project to get closer to that budget number.
Thank you.
I just want to expand a little bit on that, in that when the budget is identified in the fall of next year, as we finish the schematic design set and we prepare for town meeting, we prepare for the debt exclusion vote, that number will get locked in. There will be a specific number that's identified for those 2 votes. The estimating process through PDP, this current phase, which is an order of magnitude cost comparative to each of the options. So you'll be able to see option 1A versus 3B, how they compare, an ad reno versus new construction, or 2 ad renos, and how they compare with cost, right? So that gives you a sense of what the cost is comparative to each of the projects. and one facet of the decision-making process, right? The next step, once the options are reduced to a handful during the next phase, we'll go through the same activity. And we'll identify costs during the next phase for the 3 or 4 options that are on the table. That will give you the ability, and it will be more refined. Like each project, each option at the next phase will be more refined as part of the process. So an estimate will be attached to each of those options. And like I said earlier, we're going to have probably a couple of iterations of each of the options as well. So there may be several cost data points for each of the options. That will allow the committee to identify a single option based on many variables, including cost. So once you get to that single project, after the end of next phase, and say, okay, design team, project management team, continue with this single option through schematic design, there'll be another estimating phase. So we'll go through and estimate that single project in much, much greater detail. So when we get to the point next October, when there's a single project, there's a single budget, we'll have a really good idea as far as what makes sense for that budget in that project from a total project budget and a construction budget. Like I said, that will be the number that goes to town meeting. That will be the number that goes to the vote. If we get through the next phases that what Julie mentioned early in the process, which is the design development and the construction document phases, that's when we develop the design further and then document the construction documents for the contractor to build the project. When we get to that point, there are multiple checkpoints of cost data during that, in estimating during that process. So there's one at the end of design development, 60% CDs, 90% CDs, and then whether it's a bid or a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price for construction management, there are many checkpoints of making sure that this project is moving along on budget. So it's very, very rare. To come back to the town, it's highly unusual to come back to the town for additional funds. In fact, those checkpoints are in the process to make sure that the entire team, the building committee, the school department, the professional team, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the project is being designed on budget. So that's
Thank you.
yeah.
So we went only one time back to the town meeting for additional funding. That was during pandemic and as many other communities, districts. So it's high,
Very rare.
very rare, very unlikely.
Wonderful
Yeah.
that it's rare. Let's keep it that way.
And more recently, it has gone the other way, where we have seen a large bid savings at the time, so projects coming in under budget. Of course, that's no guarantee, but at least coming out of the pandemic, it was really positive to see the market making that change again.
Great.
I vote for that.
Other questions? So just to clarify our role, we're gonna get this whole educational program narrative, 1,500-page document, or,
No.
no, what are we gonna get?
So we are happy to share that, but the component of that 1,500-page
70-page?
is, right,
Okay,
so.
the 70-page education, right, that's what I wanna make sure.
More digestible.
I was-
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, what am I gonna do with the next?
1,500 pages.
No, it's not gonna
For
get
you,
printed,
Maria.
don't worry.
Yeah.
All right, so the 70-page, that was my question, we're gonna get the smaller 70-page.
Yes, yeah, and
Look
it's
through.
in coordination with Dr. Lang, it sounded like that would be available maybe at the end of the week to share that with.
I was just gonna ask if we'll have some lead time.
Yeah, you're gonna have lead time, so it's, obviously, it's a working document though, so this is gonna be something we're still refining over the next number of weeks. But our goal is to, by the weekend, have the draft document shared with you, so you can start to read it and peruse it over the coming holiday break. And then we'll be finalizing.
Sorry, sounds like a blast.
Sorry, Lynn,
Happy holidays.
What else are we gonna do?
we'll be finalizing, and like a draft, kind of final draft, will be in your packet for the next meeting, but at least you'll have been able to, really kind of like sink your teeth into it for a couple of weeks. But then, as Julie and the others have said, even after the 6th, when you kind of give your blessing for the general direction, we're still going to be working on this document through the springtime. But you're basically kind of endorsing the direction. A lot of it is just documenting what's currently in place in our schools that we want to see continue and opportunities to enhance our current programming. So it shouldn't be super controversial, but it just, at this point too, it's, it's a challenge because it does lay out all three options. But again, it'll continue to get refined this spring as we hone in on the actual option. But this weekend, the draft will be coming your way.
It's great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you
Great.
tomorrow night.
Yeah, thank you very much for the overview. I think
See y'all
it was very
tomorrow.
helpful. And,
Let's do it again.
Yeah, we'll
It
do it
was
again
nice
tomorrow
to
night.
hear, though, that it's been good in Chelmsford, that we've been getting good input.
Yeah, just quickly, even like the after-school sessions that we did in September, I thought very good comparatively speaking with what I've heard from other districts, so
That's good.
that's been good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've been in, not to the discredit of other districts, but there sometimes hasn't been the same level of excitement, so.
It was the free pizza at the meeting.
Yeah, maybe that's probably helped, yes, yeah.
Eating people. always
Thank you.
Wasn't a taco bar, but that's right.
Well, we didn't get that. Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
All right,
Happy
thank you.
holidays.
All right, let me just switch off this real quick. Okay, moving along in the packet, third item up for business tonight is the continuation of a discussion around the private school approval process with Drake Academy. We had their application back on at the last meeting, and some committee members had some questions about that. I corresponded with a representative of the Drake Academy, Esther, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and Esther actually did respond to us, and I put information in your packet, and then it's here tonight if there were any follow-up questions to ask of them. But we'd be looking for further discussion and then hopefully approval of their application this evening.
Hey, do people still have questions? Would you like Esther to come forward if anybody has any questions? Or, I know Diana, you and Susan had questions about the,
I appreciate the
Yeah.
responses to the questions that I had, but I don't have further questions.
okay. Any other people have questions?
No. I do appreciate the responses as well. It's good.
That's a good response.
So is everybody comfortable taking a vote at this point? Is there anything else you want to discuss in regards to this?
It's not something I think we need to ask for more details on. I wish that the financial plan was updated to project for the current situation. Right now, it presumes students there this year that there aren't. I recognize that our role in this is not to get into the weeds of the financials, but just naming that my hope is that, before families are engaged to have their kids attend the school, that the plan is in shape to make sure that it's a stable financial situation for those enrolling.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts, any comments? All right, I believe there was a motion that was in the packet.
Yeah, and I'm looking for
I
it.
have in the bottom of my.
You
bottom
can make
page of
it,
this.
you can make it.
No, the bottom of that.
Why
page.
is this is why he's the chairperson.
Oh, thank you.
So the very bottom.
I move that we approve the Drake Academy of Excellence to operate a private school in the town of Chelmsford, consistent with the terms outlined in the Drake of Excellence Academy's application dated December 10th, 2025. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Second, you want a second?
Okay, your second, John?
Second. I didn't know if
All right.
Diane.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much for coming out tonight,
Yes.
just in case. All right.
Thank you. Did great work.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And thank you to Jay and to everybody for giving us outlines of the process, and it's the first time we were exposed to it.
First time I've actually gone through it as well. Thank you, Esther. We'll be in touch. We'll figure out whatever paperwork we have to file with Desi.
Okay.
And we'll be in touch, and we'll just stay in communication.
I appreciate it. I have a checklist too of the things that I need to give to Chelmsford, so we'll be in touch.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
holiday.
Bye, good night.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, Marie, it's my first time
Thank you.
doing it as well,
Yeah,
so
First time.
we wish them well. Next item this evening, at our last meeting, Linda had prepared a draft policy that we discussed on the competency determination, and it's back before you this evening for action.
Right, anybody have any question? Anybody, I assume everybody had a chance to take a look at it. It doesn't seem that much different from what we had approved earlier in the summer. Just make it a policy rather than just a general guideline.
Right.
Okay. All right, any other questions on it? And I'm sure we'll be revoted, back by next spring, we'll change it again, but
June's gonna be more interesting. I feel like there's gonna be some long-term decisions made.
is that when they're gonna try to, yeah, okay. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll take a motion on that.
Oh, I move that we approve the competency determination policy as presented.
Second.
Second. All right, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, check that one off.
Super. Yeah, we'll get that up on the website, and we'll get that into Desi, and cross off that task. So that was good. Thank you very much for doing that. Fifth item on the agenda tonight, just, we had them in here a few minutes ago, but just a reminder that tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock at the Chelmsford Elks over on Littleton Road, we'll be having our third community visioning session. So the community will be hearing a little bit about the presentation tonight, and then some follow-up slides as well on some conceptual ideas for the school. So
No pizza at these ones.
there's no pizza at these, no.
Cookies would be
I
nice.
heard about pizza. No.
Well, we do pizza in the afternoon. I had asked Linda for a taco
Cookie would be
bar.
nice.
The
Cookie would
taco
be
bar
nice,
didn't
yeah.
happen.
Cookies would be nice, I
Yeah.
guess.
We'll see if we can have some nibbles.
All right, I know what I'm doing tomorrow.
All right. But no, in all seriousness, Chelmsford Telemedia, I want to thank them. They taped the first two. They're going to be there to tape tomorrow night as well. We've gotten good feedback from the community that if they couldn't come, they've been able to watch them. They're all posted up on our website, and we hope to get some new people out there tomorrow night to hear a little bit about the project.
Is this gonna be, again, more informational, more Q&A? What's the theme of this one?
Yeah, so more similar to the second. So I think the presentation is going to be a little bit longer than it was the first time, because it'll be a lot of the slides we went through tonight, as well as getting a little bit deeper into the visioning and like some of the neighborhood concepts that they talked about, showing some pictures from like other schools, even conceptually taking a look at the three different properties and like where the building will lay out, things along those lines. So I think it's going to probably be about a half an hour to 40 minutes of kind of presentation, followed by questions and answers with the audience. I don't believe it's too interactive tomorrow, like we did the first session, but more just information sharing and then hopefully looking for responses.
All right, we'll give Maria and, you know, Diana their own microphones, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
It'll be a good night.
Be
So
careful,
people can
Dennis, I'll
join
get
us.
you to print those 1,500 pages.
I know, they should come, so.
Great.
That is tomorrow. Sixth item on the agenda tonight is a capital plan update. Did you want to give this one, Dennis? Would you like me to? It's up-
No, I mean, most of us saw it already, the tri-board, they presented this, but, you know, we had, I forget how many projects, but we whittled it down to the ones you see here for about 6.4 million. And then with recapture funds, it's about 6.2. You know, it's quite a process. You know, you have 30 projects here, and we got it down to, what, 11 or 12. You know, I would love all the school projects to go through, but, you know, when you look at the needs of all the different departments, a lot of these are actually continuations, like the library already started HVAC, so this is the second phase of that. At Town Hall, they started the elevator project, they have to get more money for that. A lot of the projects that got approved were also from earlier years that we had to defray. So at some point, they need to get the equipment to do the plowing and things in the cemetery and all that. So I thought we got our top 5 or 6 that we were looking to get. You know, all the roof projects and all the safety components and all that. You know, the ones that we're left with, maybe we'll have some money at the end of the year and we can take on some of them or part of them, so. But it's quite a process, but, you know, in the end, I think it serves everybody in the town well, you know, all the different departments, so.
Yeah, 6 of our 9 projects were funded, which is excellent, as Dennis mentioned, the big ones, and pretty much in our ranked order. little over $2.6 million of projects, which is excellent. The three that didn't get funded, we obviously continue to track, so we have that on our internal list. And when we do determine how much available one-time funding as a district we may have, oftentimes we bring forward some of those projects to try to accomplish. So you may see them again next spring. But all in all, I thought the major projects that we had on the list, it was great to get them funded. We can now kind of shift into planning for them. They'll go before town meeting in the spring with the budget, but they were big ones for us, so I'm very happy to get those done.
Now, like the roof project, I know McCarthy's roof is leaking. If we get approved in the spring, when would that work be able to get done over the summer? Or is it gonna take another year to get that roof fixed, or?
No, so the McCarthy roof is actually getting done this summer, this
Okay.
coming summer,
Yeah.
the back roof.
Yeah.
So like basically from the, like, when you go to the gym down the
Yeah.
ramp, so that going back over the calves is gonna get done this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's going out to bid early January, because they wanted to get the pricing in by February. So that one's already been funded, and Paul was able to actually fund the balance of that project with free cash
Yeah.
this past fall. This one is for the study on the remaining McCarthy roof.
Yep.
The high school roof, and Harrington roof.
Yeah.
So we'll actually get like true cost estimates and some help kind of phasing out those projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the roof at Chelmsford High School for about $100,000 in the front cafeteria that had an active leak. That actually is might be able to do that this summer. That is set to be repaired.
That's the $1 million
So that was the
one.
one point, I'm sorry, that's the $1 million.
The million is that's what the one I was wondering, if it's an active leak, I didn't know if that was gonna
They're
get.
gonna try, they'll
Okay.
try. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know, because it does have to be designed and
Yeah.
everything. How, they're certainly gonna do patching.
Okay.
And trying to kind of keep it long, but I'll report back to you.
And where does the South Row roof fit in all this?
South Row roof, it's already out to bid.
Okay.
So the South Row roof actually opens, I think, later this week. It might be Thursday.
Okay.
So that's also being done next summer. So.
A lot of
some-
roof stuff.
Some major roofs next
Yeah,
summer. So
yeah.
South Row roof being completely done. Back of McCarthy, that's another big roof being completely done. Interior of South Row, the drop ceilings in the classrooms, that should be going out to bid in January, February to get done this summer as well. So a lot of activity roof-wise.
Yeah, and is the summer, as a result of the schedule that's coming up, is the summer shortened?
No, this actually should be a pretty long,
Okay,
long summer
great,
for us,
that's
so.
right, okay.
Weather,
Think of the-
weather permitting,
They're all excited now.
weather permitting, hopefully we actually get out earlier in June and can get a few good weeks in before the 4th. That's always nice when we can do that.
Yeah.
But we'll report a little bit later in the spring on all the capital work to be done this summer, but there will be a lot. This is also the summer of elevators. So,
is it?
yeah, so the high school elevator, the McCarthy elevator, and there's a third one.
Westlands?
I forget,
The town hall is also.
Town Hall, but I thought Westlands.
I think there were 3 schools.
Yeah.
I forgot the
I
three.
think Westlands.
There's one more.
If I had never joined town government, I wouldn't have known what a cost elevators were.
Yeah.
Right? And if you get like an old one that's out of service, you just have to buy a new one. Like there's no.
Right. And our schools, a lot of people didn't realize this, only have one elevator. It's not like a building that might have multiple elevators and you can afford to have one down. You can't afford to have one down, and there are very limited companies that actually service elevators in the
Yes.
state. So if an elevator goes down and it's a vintage elevator, people aren't stocking these parts either. So it's very difficult to get like a panel and a board and stuff like that to keep them functioning.
Well, that's why they needed more money for the town hall elevator, because the town hall's such an old building.
Well, yeah.
They went in, they did the estimation, said, no, we need more money for that, so.
Right.
It's
right.
one
And
of
that
the
can
most
happen.
regulated parts of construction
Yeah.
Yeah.
anywhere.
It's even very
in the United
difficult to get
States.
an elevator inspected, because there
Yes.
are very few elevator inspectors in the state.
Yes.
You have to kind of
Very
get in the queue to
difficult.
get your elevator inspected.
That's
Yeah, it's an ordeal.
Second
Sounds like a
grade?
need we could get. going.
Could be, you never
second
know.
grade.
You never know. I don't know if I'd want to do that.
All right, any other questions on the capital projects?
Great work on that too.
Yeah, Dennis, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is some discussion on we started this at the last meeting, just unofficially at the end, also the proposed school calendar for next year. I had, in my memo to you, kind of laid out a few different options. Just as way of brief background for first-timers, next year Labor Day falls incredibly late. It falls the latest that it can on September 7th. which basically backs up our calendar, because traditionally, we've been going back to school for the last 8 or 9 years. The Monday before Labor Day, staff would come for orientation, then some of the students would come Tuesday, some would come Wednesday, everyone would come Thursday, and then we've been doing a Friday holiday and like a 4-day weekend, even though it's not a holiday, we've been doing that, and then coming back to a 4-day week. This current year, if we follow that, that's option A. If we follow that current schedule, staff would come back that Monday, students would come back that Tuesday, and the concern was raised about students coming back on Tuesday and the state preliminary election being affected at McCarthy School on that Tuesday, first-day kids and some people coming in to vote as a potential issue. If the decision was made to not go with option one and to not have school on Tuesday, it honestly wouldn't make sense to have staff come in on Monday, take Tuesday off, and then come back on Wednesday. So option two basically has staff returning on Tuesday, kids coming on Wednesday, or some of the kids coming on Wednesday, some of the kids coming on Thursday. A third option would be, and then taking the 4-day weekend. Third option would be similar, staff on Tuesday, students on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because Friday is not an actual holiday, so it kind of picks up a day that week. So those were the three options I laid out if you had a moment to read the memo. The other thing that all three options does, though, incredibly backs up the calendar at the end of the year, so at the end of June. So the first option of the traditional holiday has the kids getting out on Thursday, the 24th, staff on the 25th, Friday. The second option, if we don't go to school on the election day, has the kids getting out on Friday, the 25th, the staff not getting out until Monday, the 28th. The third option at least corresponds with the first option, where the students get out on the 24th and staff get out on the 25th. It doesn't bump into the last 3 days in June for a little bit of flexibility. Following all of that discussion, I have had, just some inquiries and some conversations with the union, because a lot of this is predicated on the union type stuff. They also realize that this is incredibly late, and I think everyone agrees with kind of front-loading a calendar as opposed to having days at the end of June, just because of, it's hot in the buildings and people's kind of mindsets moving on to the summertime. So they expressed some interest in actually discussing, possibly bumping up the calendar to the week before. If you think about it, this past year, we started school on Monday, the 25th. Staff came, and then students came that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If we bumped it up a week earlier this year, it would only be the 24th. It would only be 1 day earlier. So staff could come on the 24th, and then, kids the 25th, and right down the line. So if the committee desired as well, I'd be happy to just have if that was a direction you wanted to even explore, happy to have offline conversations with the union over the rest of this week and report back to you their willingness to potentially look at alternate schedules and what those could be. And then we could come back at the January 6th meeting and actually vote that night one way or the other. So those are kind of the, I guess, 4 options. One of these 3, or happy to go back and talk to the union and then come back to you with another potential option to do that on the 6th.
Thoughts?
As Dr. Lang knows, I've been advocating for considering coming the prior week if we can work out an MOU with the union, because I do think that I've heard from several stakeholders, both on the educator side and on the parent side, that the late June release is really tough for many reasons. But I also think because we're no longer, if this were to happen, the first week of school would no longer bump up against Labor Day weekend. We could start a day later in the week, because we wouldn't need to take the Friday off, because it wouldn't be a long weekend for people in that first week. So we could look at a 25th return and not be, or whatever it would be, to be the same as last year rather than being a day earlier, because we could still squeeze in sort of 3 school days in that first week, including the Friday, since that wouldn't be abutting a long weekend. So that is another possibility.
We could do it one of each ways. We could either do it like you indicated, or we could do the 4 and then take that Friday off to have 2, like, say, weekends in a row or off on the Fridays. It could go either way, but at least we could have the dialogue with the union and see what.
Yeah, I guess I'm not strongly advocating for not having a long weekend necessarily. I just mean it gives us some flexibility if the 24th felt like a step too far for staff to return. Like, we could do the same as last year, literally the
You'd be kind of
25th.
getting a long weekend one way or the other. Either you don't come Monday, or you don't come Friday. But
Yeah.
it would allow us to at least pick up 3 days of school ahead of time.
Exactly,
At
yeah.
the end of the year.
So I mean, I don't know, how much support, I've certainly heard from a few individual educators' interest in moving it up. I don't know whether the union is going to be supportive of it, but presuming that there is informal dialogue that expresses interest, I definitely would advocate for us exploring that option before we try to solidify one of these other options, all of which are for various reasons imperfect and all of which have us getting out very late in June.
Other thoughts?
Option 4 is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to explore that with the union, and then, I don't know what we do the election day. I would feel uncomfortable if we kept our schedule and we had our kids coming back the first day, and it's an election day for the McCarthy kids, first day on the bus, first day of finding classes. But if we're already in school for a week plus, those kids already.
Well, we've done that before.
Right, but the students would be more adjusted, parents would know the routines. I would feel more comfortable with them going back.
I feel the same way as the parent of a child who would be starting at McCarthy
Yeah.
this year. I am less enthused about having that be the first day of school, but I think we have a lot of different things that come up, including other elections during the school year. And I think once you're 4 days in or whatever it would wind up being, I think things are more established and you can slightly change up the routine a little bit without having everybody learn the wrong thing as the routine and things like that.
All right, so everybody comfortable with talking to the union
We
office?
just won't take action tonight.
Yeah,
I'll just
and
report
see what they
back.
want to say and come back with some.
I'll do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8 is a proposed budget calendar for fiscal '27. So these just kind of put some dates on your radar. This is consistent with what we've done previously. Typically, the first meeting in February is when I provide the public overview of the budget document to the school committee members. And then because February, we always take February vacation off, so you kind of have an extra week to review it. We then come back at the last meeting in February and we have our formal budget hearing. That'll be on the 24th. I did just make a little note in case there was ever weather impacting either. We would also hold March 3rd as a potential date for further budget, but I recommend that timeline. And just as an aside, as we continue to work internally on the budget, we're making some pretty good progress this week. And obviously, over the holiday break where it's a little quieter, we can get a good kind of head of steam on us. I'll be meeting with Paul before and after Christmas break to kind of see where we're at with our budget numbers overall. But I can provide you an update probably at their first meeting in January, just where we're at as far as kind of developing the recommendation. It's a little premature tonight, but a couple more weeks will give me a much better sense.
Does this fall into, I know at last town meeting or whatever, they kind of changed the budget calendar so that we
I
would
think
have to present a little earlier than we would normally or before he did.
Yeah, I don't know that we necessarily have to present earlier because I really couldn't do it much earlier. His request at the time was basically to be able to get a copy of our budget and see what I'm actually recommending ahead of time. Because I believe he would be recommending to the school committee, to the select board on like Monday the 2nd. And it was odd for him to not have our budget before he recommended the town budget. So what I would do is on the Friday before, I would just have our budget, because it's technically part of a packet anyway. I mean, I just won't make the public presentation until Tuesday night, but I'll give you a copy of the budget ahead of time, and I think that will work for him. Because I think that's what he was basically looking for.
Okay, great.
But I'll coordinate and make sure that that's fine
Yeah.
as well. But I think these dates are consistent and work for us.
Any other questions on this? All right, we look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good. Personnel report, item number 9 on the agenda tonight. Just your limited activity for the month of November. We had a couple of new hires, a couple of resignation, well, a resignation and then a retirement. Not too much action at this time of the year, but just sharing with you so you would have the ins and outs of the school department.
All right, any questions on the personnel report? Oh, great. Okay.
And then last item for me is really just sharing the Valley Collaborative Quarterly Report of Business. So they send this along to us 4 times a year. We're a member community of Valley Collaborative. I serve as your representative on their board. And the regulations with the state indicate that they have to share these quarterly reports, and we have to just basically acknowledge receipt, and then we've complied with the DESI regulation.
I will take a motion to,
Okay, I move that we accept the presentation of the quarterly reports on the collaborative business fiscal year 26 first quarter as presented.
Second.
any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, and we did not have any field trips.
No field trips, great.
Okay.
All right, anyone have any liaison reports that they would like to go through?
Yep.
Right.
The high school,
Yeah.
the PTO did meet. They ran, the one thing they want to make sure that I say is they ran a wonderful Candyland-based staff appreciation development day. And it apparently was wonderful. They had a great time. And they want to say thank you for the collaboration of the funding for these things, because it really adds so much to what they're able to provide. So they really enjoyed it.
John, no? Anna?
I, excuse me, was able to attend on the 11th, the Parker and McCarthy PTO meetings, which is a kind of a joint meeting, continuing to be that way. So I can share a few updates about each school. Parker had a really successful craft fair on the 7th. They felt it was really well attended. It included several booths of students selling their crafts, and many students left feeling really successful too, which is great to hear. Their Be the Change project is kicking off again, which is a student-driven project that is related to giving back to the broader community. It includes some groups doing Meals of Hope or Table of Plenty, placemats, food drives, and more. So that is going strong again this year. They had a very vibrant 6-7 day on the 67th day of school that was sponsored by the Student Council. And for anybody who is neither an educator nor a parent of tweens, that is a very big deal to 12-year-olds, apparently. Next Thursday, in a couple of days, there will be a school-wide concert of all of the students involved in performing arts. And as you've been hearing about the evening concerts, but this is for the students to hear each other perform. So that's particularly cool for the band students who don't have their big concert until January, unlike the other types of performing arts, which are happening, I think, this week. So that is Parker. McCarthy had a school-wide pep rally with ultimate volleyball among the different teams at the school. And the winning team went against staff just before Thanksgiving. So that was a fun sort of school-wide bonding event. They've been doing and finding successful the youth science career-related analysis activity to help people figure out potential careers, particularly in the STEM fields. They felt like they had very good turnout for conferences. They've decided, if you may remember from our last meeting, they talked about this, but Project 300 is now happening after the holidays rather than December like usual. And both schools are actively getting ready for their plays, which will be happening in the winter. The other things to name are that there's going to be a Showboat talent show on May 16th. And that is including students from both schools. And the Parker Pride Run will be happening again in May 2026, but date to be determined.
Great, thank you. I attended the CPAC had a meeting. They had an online meeting just to try to get the CPAC back going again. So they, was very vibrant. Probably when I started on committee, probably like 8 years ago. A lot of very involved parents, and then slowly those parents kind of worked out. And then there was another group that kind of took over for a while, and they kind of worked out. So the numbers have been kind of dwindling. So they decided that they would have this meeting and just kind of do, what is CPAC and, you know, what's the role of CPAC? And they had Leslie, who's the director of the Federation for Children with Special Needs, on to kind of go through that. And it was unbelievable. There was almost 40 people online. So, and very, very interested, you know, a lot of, you know, memos going back and forth during the meeting. So they're planning to have a second meeting of people that would be maybe not on the board, but interested in kind of getting a board back together again and coming back with the bylaws again. So it seems like it's heading back in the right direction. So
Great.
I'll keep you updated if they do have that second meeting. The other thing is we have our thing tomorrow night, but then also on Thursday, we have a building committee meeting. So we'll get to listen about the Parker building again. So, you know, it keeps on going.
A lot of repetition.
Yeah. All right, any new items?
I do want to thank Dr. Lang for following up on the Princeton Street projects, the West Campus projects. And I think what I concluded in the end of it all is that we still have a very large part of one phase that is not tenanted yet, and then the last one fully doesn't even have occupancies yet,
Yeah, so there's 4 phases.
right?
Phase 3 is partially occupied,
Right.
maybe, off the top of my head, like half occupied,
No.
maybe.
It was
And
less.
then the 4th one doesn't have anyone in it yet. So that one's still to be occupied.
And so far, we have about 18, was it? 18
18.
students?
Not too bad.
At all different, no, that's really not too bad. And they were all at different grade levels in the district.
Yes.
So
which
it
is
wasn't
great.
like really impacting a particular school or anything.
Yeah.
So that was positive for right now. But I did make contact with the representative who is in the leasing office. They are all leased units as well. So, because someone had asked that, I don't know if I clarified in the email, but they're not like month-to-month rentals. They're all like leases.
That's right.
And the very nice woman in the office actually said she's going to try to send me regular reports as they do their, not enrollments, but what would you call it, when they do their leasing?
Lease
So as
renewals.
they get their leases issued, she'll give me a little report from time to time to
Yeah.
just help me track that.
Yeah, because it is a more transitory group, quote unquote, because of the fact that it's tenants rather than, yeah. Thank you.
Happy to
That was
share.
good. That was very good.
Any other items? All right, it doesn't look like we have anybody for public comment. I don't see any emails, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.